Hey, Dad.
Hey, Matt.
How'd you like that 4, 3, 2, 1 count in?
I think it was pretty cool.
Do you feel very professional, like you're a star already?
I feel so professional.
We should welcome our listening audience, our family and friends who are listening, and hopefully maybe we reach some more people. Obviously, that's why we're doing this.
Yes, that would be cool. Very cool.
Right. So this is Discussions with Dad. Faith, blood, and the in between. Our very first podcast. Neither one of us knows what we're doing.
Right.
I think, though, that the why, and we're going to set up some whys for our audience, obviously, but the why is very evident in, for our listening audience, you can't see it, but for our viewing audience, you can. The backgrounds, that you're in your office slash garage slash your home for your Harleys. And I've got these LA, my friend Brooke Kivowitz shot that, and a street artist in New York shot this, and art up there by Sari Lennox, and we're just this is the why. This is the simplest description of the why of our show. You're from small rural town Colorado.
Yes, and by the way, my gun safe is right here to the right.
Thank you for reminding everyone that you have guns.
Yes.
And you know, you and my mom moved us, me and Sheree, to Los Angeles when we were really young, and so I had kind of this best of both worlds, which I didn't discover until I was in graduate school. But I realized the duality that I had. I'm so fortunate both in you and Mom, and in being born in rural, small town, conservative America, and then kind of growing up in smaller beach city, still conservative, Torrance Redondo Beach area. That shaped so much of my childhood and informed exactly how I became who I became. And so I'm just curious, I wonder if you have the same perspective on that.
Oh, I do. I think my small town redneck hick upbringing was tempered by 9 years in LA County. I really do. It changed me a lot. It made me see a whole different side of the world, really. And at first I thought I would hate it, as you know. But I grew to love it out there. I really did. I mean, I'm glad I'm back home for a lot of reasons. And I do love small town America. But I really did. I think it was a good perspective for someone like me to have that and see that.
Yeah, I never really even thought how much that must have been a shell shock to you. You were really young parents, you and Mom, and to have these two. I was in third grade, and Sheree was in first grade, and you're bringing us from this really small town. And I mean, for the listeners in the audience, it's how many people are in the town even now?
4,500. It's always been around 4,000,
Yeah,
4,500. Yeah.
really small rural Colorado, southern Colorado, 2 hours south of Denver, right? And then to come to Los Angeles.
Right. Yeah,
Crazy.
culture shock. Definitely for me, culture shock.
Yeah.
My biggest exposure to anything before that was going to college when I went to CSU.
Right.
And so that was a little bit different. But really, I had not ever experienced anything like that. Like I said, I grew to love it. As you know, I love the theater, and that's because of what you went through. And now I love the theater. I miss not getting to go see live productions. I really do.
Yeah, it's so important. It's such a huge part of culture, and a huge part of our theme today, actually. So this is the perfect segue to talk about our why. For more than a decade, my ex-husband and creative partner, we were pushed and encouraged to try and start a podcast, and I never was interested. And mainly because any of the podcasts that I liked and enjoyed, the common thread was that it was honest, and that it didn't hold back. And I knew that with my ex, I couldn't have that. So for me, then when we went through a pandemic, I went through that divorce, and then I found a new partner to go through life with, which was better. And then my sister died, and your daughter died, and that changed everything for me.
Everything.
Everything.
Yep. I
Yeah.
agree.
and it brought me so much closer to you. Not that we've always been close, and we'll get to that later in the show, but for me, it just solidified that the why that I thought I was doing of performing and seeking to choreograph and direct and write books and things like that, it completely shifted, and now I just have a whole new reason for the why. And I'm so fortunate that I was able to, when Cherie passed, thankfully I had Anthony and I was in that graduate program. Both of these things helped me refocus and shift. And so the why for me of this podcast is hopefully that you and I can have frank conversations that I think aren't happening anymore between families and even friends who are close friends that have really polar opposite opinions of where the country might be, where the world should be, where faith is, or if there even needs to be faith, which of course you and I both have faith and think yes. But I think this will be really informative, hopefully for you and I, as we continue to try and evolve as better people. And hopefully we help some people out there that maybe want to reconnect with their son or daughter or their mom or dad or brother or sister or aunt or uncle or anyone that slighted them in the last, I don't know, I'm going to say it started in, 2014, 2015, leading up to that 2016 election.
Oh yeah, I agree. I hope that we can convey to people that you can still love people deeply, love your family deeply, even though we have some very polar opposite opinions. But you have to hold on to, and that's why I really like the blood part of the
Yeah.
of of your of your
Our,
title. Yeah,
our,
yeah, of our title, yes, of course, and I love that because blood is blood, and I know you've been taught that, and I was taught that too. Family's always family, and of course, faith and family go hand in hand, and there's decent ways to talk to each other, and we've not always done that. Me and you have not always been that way, to be honest with
yeah.
everybody. It's got
Actually, and if I can just interrupt you for 1 second to put a pin in that, because you said blood is blood and family's family, and I'm sure that there are moments out there, and this is just part of me trying to really play both sides of something and see the duality in something. There are probably children out there that were neglected by their parents and kicked out and abused, and they never want to go back to those situations. And we're not talking about those cases. If that's you, or if
right,
you're in a circumstance that is so extreme that your life is at stake, neither you or I, and I want to be clear about this, neither you or I want that for anyone.
no,
We're talking about it. We just shouldn't so casually let go of a lifelong friendship, whether it's blood or not, but specifically if it's blood,
right.
because we have polar opposite opinions. And we hopefully over the next, 24 episodes that we're going to do, we will get to the root of why people think it's okay now to be in that place and not try to work through that place. And I think personally it starts, with leadership, obviously, and
Right.
media.
Yeah, no, I think that's a huge contributor. But basically, it's more than just work with someone. It's learn to care about people. Why? When did we stop caring about people? No matter what your faction of life is, no matter what you believe, I think that you need to care about each other and take
Yeah.
care of each other. Definitely, if you're family, and
Yeah.
and that's basically where I'm coming from. And I think as we play this out, you'll see it more and more in how the last 2 years have changed you and I a lot too.
Yeah. The last 3 years. Well, I mean,
Yeah, literally.
honestly, Dad, it's been 4 years since Cherie. I can't believe it has
Right.
gone. But that's really when the shift happened. And then October 7th, 2023 is really when you and I came together and we were both like, what is happening
Right.
with reality? And
Right. And we
up
didn't. It
and
wasn't
down.
like we didn't talk before that, or we
No, of
didn't
course not.
do anything. It's just that really that made our eyes open up to what what the world is throwing at us right now,
Yeah.
and how we think we should handle it as father, son, and as family. And like you said, friends too. There's many friends that I've have huge disagreements with that I don't really interact with because of certain things that are going on nowadays, and I think it's very sad.
Yeah, I do too. This is the perfect place to kind of put forth a series of Well, we call them core promises. And we want to establish three core promises to ourselves, you and I, me and you, Dad, and commitments that will help us grow our relationship while hopefully inviting our community to listen for places where connection is possible, even in a disagreement. And so our three that we came up with and we're good with is, the first one is, even when we disagree, we will practice patience and love over certainty.
Right.
That's going to be a hard one.
Very hard. I'm very impatient, as you
And,
know.
and we both think we're right, want to be heard. It's going
Yes.
to be a hard one.
Yes. That will be a hard one.
The second one, we will tell the truth with care.
Yes.
We're good at that.
Yes. But always tell the truth.
We'll always be honest,
Yes.
and or the with the information that we have at the time.
Exactly. And I don't like the word the brutal truth. I really don't, because truth doesn't have to be brutal if it's presented properly
Well, that's why we added, we will tell the truth with care.
with care. Right.
And we will listen to understand, not convince, convert, or prove wrong. And for me, I need to share that, and I need to receive that.
Me as well. Because we're a lot alike in that way. I always want to be right. I always think I'm right.
Right.
And that's not always the case, obviously.
And I think also that's how, and we'll just jump right into it. So we agree on those three things. The other thing I wanted to talk about before we jump right into it, actually, are there anything off limits for you?
No.
I don't think so for me either, except I want to be careful about how we talk about Cherie and also maybe my mom.
Well, I think that there should be things that are off limits as far as, definitely, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
I agree. I agree with you.
And then can we also agree, I'm springing this on you last minute, but can we also agree, like, if we get to a place and it's really getting heated and we're going to break one or more of those three things, like practicing patience over love, or truth with care, or understanding and listening to understand and not the others, that we table it?
Yeah, and that's very good. Yes.
Okay, cool. All right.
Yeah, and either one of us can enact that. Say, I think we better
Yeah.
table this.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that's important. I think this is not this episode, but I don't know about, like, when you grow up in an Italian, or I think any immigrant ethnic household. I shouldn't be broad stroking. Well, I'm a broad stroker, so the audience is either going to accept me or not. And that's one of the truths. We're always going to tell the truth with care. I think
Right.
households, their communication is hard, and loud people are loud communicators, expressive communicators. Right now, I'm using my hands, and I was told all through school to sit on my hands, and I think that's just a horrible thing to do. And even when I was acting, you have to really ground down and convince someone with your voice and your eyes. And but when you want to tell someone with your arms, you have to. But anyway, okay. So our nostalgia part is for episode 1 was when we remember having our first conversation. But before I go into that, coming out of the why I think of where we are is, I think for me, what drew me close to wanting to do this podcast and start having these conversations was the way that I was seeing people who called themselves, and we will have lots of conversations about this, people who call themselves Christian, who were acting counter to what I was raised, and I grew up in the Catholic Church, what I was raised as Christianly. And I would come to you and I would just have these conversations, and you and I would get into it. And sometimes we completely agreed, more often than not, actually, which
Right.
I think surprised both of us. So do you remember, well, I guess I'll start with one of my first real adult conversations was about God, and I was angry about something, and I challenged something in the Bible. And I remember you just actually hearing me, and I don't even know if I had left from high school yet or not, but I remember you actually hearing me and taking up a beat and sitting back and having a conversation like I saw you would have a conversation with grandma or grandpa, rather than I'm not saying that, and I believe me, this is, I'm not saying you talked down to me when I was growing up, but you informed me in a way that I always knew that you had authority and that you knew what you were talking about, which I think is very important. I think that's what gave me the confidence to move through life and actually accomplish things that I probably wasn't ready to accomplish, but I could step up and deliver on because you also
Right.
had the follow through.
Right.
Do you
Yeah,
remember?
and I remember that conversation. And you were still in high school. You had not moved out yet. And well, the first part of that conversation, I remember always telling you that there's people that call themselves Christian who are not Christian, and I
Right.
always qualified that. And that's fine. People can say what they want to say. That's fine. But I always tried to tell you they're not a Christian. They can't be if they do something like that. And
Right.
I think that helped out. And I think just there were several times in your senior year, it was just me and you and Sheree,
Yeah.
you know. And there were several times that I look back on now, and I can't pinpoint every conversation, but I can remember saying, "My gosh, he's he's really grown up," and despite the crappiness, and it wasn't that you had a bad childhood, but let's face it, you came from a broken home. I was messed up because of that. I know. I'm sure it messed you and Sheree up a little bit too, because I think it messes up everybody a little
Yeah.
bit. And I was amazed at how mature you were. And yet there was times like when we went to Chicago and I dropped you off at the YMCA and you looked at me and said, "Dad, I can't stay here." And I knew, hey, he's still a young man. He's a boy, and we walked through that too. I mean, there were some good conversations about stuff like that too.
Yeah, actually, so when I turned 18, I had an opportunity to go to school and earn a BFA, or I had an opportunity to take an apprenticeship with Giordano Dance Chicago, and I took the apprenticeship because I wanted to be working. And so, yeah, go ahead.
Against my wishes. I
Against your wishes.
Yeah, I know. I mean, it wasn't just
Well,
my
you wanted
wishes.
me to go to law school.
No, yeah, because you were always a good debater.
Litigator?
Yeah, litigator, yeah. But really, it wasn't. I knew you were going to choose dance school, and I knew you were so good at dance, and that was your future. But also, here was this scholarship for U of A, and now I think looking back, you might have done your undergraduate and been a little bit different because now you do have a degree, and it's a master's degree, and that's really cool. It might have changed things a little bit,
Oh,
but
it would have changed everything, Dad.
yeah, yeah,
I don't regret it. I believe in
no,
apprenticeship programs. I believe in trade schools. I don't think, and because, and think, yeah, I agree. I believe in higher education too. That's why I went back and earned my master's degree because I think there's a time and a season for everything.
everything.
However, I was 18 and ready to dance and had opportunities with places that were going to take me around the world. And here's the thing, and this is where we are in this country right now from my point of view as a 47-year-old man, and I feel old like one of those people that I remember when I was 15 or 16 being like, well, what do they know? Like they've lived their life. But I had the opportunity because of that apprenticeship, and then I got right into the company through a series of fortunate events and a passport that I was wise enough to have on
Right.
hand. I went to Europe and I got to see the world on while being paid to be an artist. And I think every, I don't know, junior in this country, their junior year should have to go on some sort of mission or trip or sojourn anything to another country just for and not have it be North or South America. Really go to Europe or to the continent of Africa or Asia and see how other people actually live.
Live. Yeah.
That's
I
what
agree.
that's what going, and I would not have received that at the University of Arizona, although I
No.
would have received a really fine education and a great dance program, which I still think is amazing today. If I would have gone to school, I don't know that I would have gone into the dance company, and I wouldn't have gone to Europe. I think I would have come back to LA and started trying to work on film and television. So I
Right.
think there's a path for everything.
Right. And you know how I feel about trade school because obviously I'm a plumber, and I served an apprenticeship,
Right.
and so I think that's the best route to go always. I think the biggest lie, and it wasn't a lie. I shouldn't use that word. It's too harsh. I guess it was just given to a lot of people my age coming out of school that if you didn't go to college, you wouldn't amount to nothing, and it just
Yeah.
wasn't true. I know a lot of people believe that, but I think trade school is a great place. I think you can get very good education at the schools now, and like you said, you're getting paid while you do it,
Right.
and you turn out to a really good career, whether it be plumbing, electrical, carpentry, pipe fitting. It doesn't matter. Yeah, I
Right.
agree. I agree.
So, okay, so getting back on path, because all of that to say, I ended up in Chicago. I was 18, and I had some money saved from working, at one of my aunt's business, my aunt and my grandfather's business. And I get to Chicago, and I'm prepared to stay a couple of months at the YMCA. I had enough to do that and find a place and find a job and get on my feet when I got into, I was actually living in Evanston. And we go into that YMCA, and I'll never. I really thought in my head and in my heart, I was like, if this is, I'm not gonna make it. I won't make it here. I don't. It was a communal locker room with like old school, everything, and and just even the way the administrator who welcomed us in and all of the opening conversation that he said was so seedy. I
Yeah.
was like, this is. But coincidentally, around the corner in a beautiful neighborhood was one of the best bed and breakfasts in Chicago with a delicious restaurant below. And you hooked me up for 3 months. You paid my you your Amex Gold card.
I'll never forget. It was $1,100 a month, and
Yeah,
back then, I mean, what year was that? 96.
6.
Yeah, I mean that was a lot of money, and I
I
was
know.
making good money. That was that was cool, but still, I
Yeah,
thought, holy moly, and yeah, but it worked out. It worked out great. Yeah,
yeah. I think so too. I mean, we can always look back, and that's, you and I are both very nostalgic people. I think we got that from your mom, my grandma Shaffer. I love her. I miss
yeah,
her. I miss her every day.
me as
But I
well.
also, yeah, I'm sure, Dad. But I also see her every day.
Right.
Obviously, in all the things that she left behind, but also in my actions. She instilled so many strong core values. Why don't we think people talk anymore?
I think there's two reasons. One, it's the sign of the times, and again, and this might come out early, maybe too early, but I don't think so. You know how faith based I am, and you know my biblical beliefs,
Right.
and I think that the Bible's pointing to that right now. And I've told you that many, many times when fathers will be against sons and sons will be against fathers, and kids will not respect. And I'm paraphrasing. I can get you the exact quote, but that the Lord said. But really, I think it's just where we're at right now in society. That's one reason. That
And okay, so, and as I always do, it's coming from me, which
right.
is, how is this any different than any other moment in history where fathers and sons collided during World War II or Vietnam, or especially in Vietnam, and you were a little too young, but like,
Well, I was there.
but
I didn't go to
right,
Nam,
but
but
you couldn't have served. You weren't drafted or anything like that.
that's right. My senior
You were too
year,
young.
Saigon fell.
Right.
May
So
of 1975. Yeah.
right. So
Um, and you're right. It's always been that. There's nothing new under the sun. I think it's intensified. I think everything's a little bit more intensified,
right.
which is not a good thing when it comes to not talking with your parents or not respecting your parents and it works both ways. Parents not respecting or being good with their children either. I think that's one reason. The other reason I really think it's that way is because we've increased all modes of communication with
Hmm.
phones and all this stuff, and yet we face to face talking is like the hardest thing in the world to do, and it makes me so mad that. And I do it. I'm guilty of it. I'll be sitting at a restaurant across from you, and I'll pick up my phone and start texting something. And really, the focal point should be on the person you're with. And I just think you just need to work. We just need to work on that. Everybody needs to work on that.
I agree. I think what happened was these devices that definitely brought people much closer together and definitely helped underdeveloped countries become developed countries because of access to seeing what's out there and opening and liberating people, it also, and especially in the United States, I think it isolated. We see it in, I see it in my niece, and I see it in, I work with young adults all across the country in a dance convention that I teach on, and I see them. They're so afraid to actually be who they are because it's not what they see on this 15 to 45-second polished packaged product on social media.
Right.
And then on top of that, their parents, I'm sure, and wherever they're hearing, what's actually happening in the world, and then people our age, adults, are so fixated on tribalism and looking at the country as if we're two NFL teams fighting for victory in the Super Bowl.
Right.
Unfortunately, it's our lives, and people are suffering on both sides in this
Oh, I
country.
agree. Yeah. No, definitely.
And I
Yeah.
don't think politicians are helping.
No, in the overall scheme of things, they're not. They're probably not.
And so, and this is our first episode, so I don't want to scare our listeners away. But I always say I think leadership starts at the top, and so I'm looking to our president to be a leader, and I don't think he's there.
And this is one of those points that we disagree on. I think he leads. Obviously, he's a leader. All his life, he's been a leader, and he had an amazing business career. He had the number one TV show. Everything he does is really actually amazing. I don't like sometimes the way he does it, but that's him. I do like the things he does, as you know. We've talked about my four main reasons, which maybe not get into it today, but I've got four reasons why I believe he's a good leader.
Well, okay, so you test who you're going to elect to represent our country, our future, based off four principles.
Right. And
I think you should share them.
now,
Yeah.
okay, all right. So the first one, obviously, is pro-life, pro-choice.
Okay, that's your number one.
That's my number one.
Okay.
Unnegotiable. Pro-life, pro-choice.
Okay.
My number two is Israel, as we've discussed a million times. You can't be anti-Israel. You have to be pro-Israel, or I won't vote for you. Right. Number
Okay.
three, and this is probably going to shock you, is same-sex marriage, but we've talked about that before, and that's just coming from my biblical belief and what I believe.
Right.
Doesn't mean partners can't be partners. Doesn't mean there could be a legal way to do it. And we've had this discussion. I'm talking about what I believe is biblical marriage, same-sex marriage. Number four is the Second Amendment. I'm a staunch Second Amendment supporter. I believe it's constitutionally the right way. And then if you want to add a number five, then I get to economics.
Right. Which
You know,
used to be more further up on your list, I'm going to point out.
it was, but it really.
The economy's, it's not good right now.
And see, and I think maybe looking at it from California's viewpoint, it's not. But here, our gas just went to $1.99 a gallon. You
Yeah.
know, silver is at $92 an ounce today. The interest rate is coming down. It came down another 0.5%. I'm excited. If the interest rate keeps going down, silver's going to rise. My opinion. I'm going to be able to sell a house that I want to sell. I mean, yeah.
Okay, so so in your leadership, okay, so you have your four things which our audience heard, and I'm not going to challenge them. We'll get into challenging them as
Right.
the podcast moves on.
And we've talked about them many times.
Yeah, but I mean, as a someone who understands journalism, and is hosting a podcast, I should probably push back on many of those things, especially as a gay member of the queer community. I think women should have autonomy over their body. I'm just going to say that. And I understand, and I believe in God, and we will. And this is why we're doing this podcast, and we'll get into this at some point down the road, and we can share our backstory and how we feel about why we feel about
Yet,
that.
yet your stance on Israel is probably better than mine.
I'm with you on Israel.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. I think that anyone that whose people have suffered through an extermination of almost to death, like leaving 8 million or 6 million or however few there were, spread in this diaspora all around the world, that they shouldn't be able to have a place that was given to them, and given to them, by the way, through the UN, and it was never mandated or occupied by the United States. That was the British occupation. So, and we'll get into this one later too. But yes,
Right.
I'm with you on the Israel, the gay marriage. I see, and this is where, I don't know if I'm the best advocate for the queer community. I think that everyone should have the right, any two consenting adults should have the right to enter into a relationship and be in a marriage. But I understand and hear why you are challenged by marriage as a sacrificial or sacrificial,
Sacred.
sacram, yeah, sacred ceremony. So that one's always kind of been a little like, well, yeah, what I care about in that regard is equal right, equal protection, equal everything. For example, if my partner is sick, I should be allowed to go and see him in the hospital. Or if he dies, I should be entitled to his pension, and we should be able to share each other's insurance and be on it's things like that. That's, for me, that's the equitable of it. When I was younger, I always wondered why someone in the gay community would want to be married, because it goes with all of those Christian core values and Judeo-Christian idea of what our country kind of evolved and was built on. And so that always challenged me. Now I see it a different way. And
Right.
I want to, if normal is marriage, then and I'm normal, I want to be married to my partner. So
Right.
I get it.
Yeah.
But I know. So, okay. So all of that, now we'll go back. And so this is where, and for me, the why people don't talk anymore, I think that it all stems from hypocrisy. I think we say one thing and then we do something else, and it's everywhere right now, all around the world. But we see it in our backyard. We see the same people who didn't want to wear masks are advocating for people to wear masks now, and we see people who are fighting the same way that people fought on January 6th. They're getting pushed back and murdered, and so I think people are afraid. I think people are genuinely afraid to have a point of view and opinion now.
Could be. Could be. The only thing I would disagree with that statement is it seems like they're expressing their opinions in the wrong way. Standing in front of a moving car is not smart to express your opinion.
Yeah, but
Challenging law enforcement is not smart. I think you can challenge law enforcement, but I think you do it in the right way. If I was to get pulled over and
as a 60 something year old white man,
68-year-old white man,
right?
right? If I was to get pulled over and the officer had a legitimate reason to pull me over, or he wouldn't be pulling me over, but he tells me that, and then he says, I need you to step out of the car. That's a lawful order. I would step out of the car. I wouldn't sit there and argue with him about it. That really just ticks me off. I mean, I have nothing to hide. I'm not doing nothing illegal. And as you know, I'm concealed carry. That's probably going to come out, now the world knows. But I mean, that presents a certain way that I have to act when I am being pulled over, by the way. So having said all that, I just think that you need to obey the law and be respectful to those people, and I think they're not being that way. They're
Okay.
not doing it the right way
Okay.
in
So,
that incident, anyways.
okay. So, okay. I hear you. Now, there are two things that I want to address. The first and foremost is I don't think whether you're obeying the law or not, I think a police officer, any person in service to the American people, I think it's their duty to detain and not murder, detain and not go for unless their life is in jeopardy. And I don't think that his life was in jeopardy. That's my opinion.
I agree
No,
with the
wait,
first part of that statement. Obviously, the second one I don't.
okay, number two. Well, okay, we'll circle back on that. Number two, do you think that it's different because of your being white and growing up and understanding that it's if you follow the law and you haven't done anything wrong, nothing wrong will happen to you. But it is not the same for people of color or for people in marginalized communities and culture. And so it just isn't, to say just listen to authority, it does sound a little like, okay, now the authority can just come in and do whatever they want with no due process. And here we go.
No, I totally disagree with that. There has to be due process. The way and maybe I didn't express it exactly like I should have, but the way it should be is if they do come in and do what they want without due process or without serving a warrant or without, having a good reason to pull you over, then I think your reaction to that should be very respectful and then fight it in a court of law. That's what I think, or fight it later on.
And I understand
you-
that. But do you
if you
hear
sit-
why? But do you understand why? If you're in a marginalized community, do you understand why that isn't always afforded to people? And we can't even get into the judicial corruption and things like that. But where judges are bought off and prisons were getting money and all of that, we'll get into all of that later.
Sure.
But do you
And
understand
there's always an
that?
extreme. There's always an extreme, and there's always there's always something that would not be 100% correct. But that doesn't mean you don't do what you're supposed to do. To me,
And that's why we're having this conversation,
Right.
because it's really hard for me because I grew up with this Opie kind of idealism. Opie, right? Ron Howard.
yep.
I'm just making sure because I hope we will have some-
Mayberry.
Mayberry.
Yeah.
Because I was born in a town like Mayberry
Right.
and spent enough of my childhood to remember. And then, of course, any winter or summer vacation with family, with my grandparents in Colorado, which again, that perspective was really great. But part of it, I think maybe is this idea was put on to me and I grew up in it and it was right for me. But also, again, I am a white male. And then once I got into Los Angeles and I was in the public school system here, where I was, I grew up in a really diverse community, wealthier, and community, but diverse. I was exposed to so many different things and so many different ideas and realized really quickly after just a few short interactions with law enforcement, not that I was doing anything wrong or either of my friends, but just based on skin color. And so I just think it's easy for white people to sit back and say, well, you just have to follow the law. Just put your hands up. Just do this. Just do that. And then have them watch something like the January 6th incident. I want to call it an insurrection, but I don't want to start a war with you. But even that you're laughing about the fact that so many people were hurt. And I know you're not laughing at that. I need to clarify to the
I'm
audience.
laughing at you, actually.
You're laughing at my dramatic
Yes.
delivery.
Right.
We're having really
and
we're having really hard conversations. And I don't want anyone in the audience listening to think that we take any of this casually.
no.
I just think that until we start having conversations and until we can shed light and maybe sometimes laugh through hard things, we're never going to get anywhere. But I really, Dad, the hypocrisy sometimes, it confuses me because I know you're a good human being and I know what your heart is and I know the kind of Christian you are. I know so many other people out there are taking advantage of people based on and using a Christian idea. And for me, that's, it's hard. It's hard to not want to go out and protest and get in front of riot ICE and It is. It's really hard. Because I don't think Christians would deport people the way Donald Trump is doing it.
Well, okay, two things. One, you're using that broad brush that you know you do, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So that's one thing. But the other thing is, and it's really funny you brought that up because I just saw a reel watching on Facebook or on Instagram, I guess it was. And I don't, and again, I didn't fact check it, or so I don't know. And we got to qualify that because now there's so many things that come out that's just not true.
Yeah, and you know what? One of what's off limits on the table, I was going to say we can only bring things in that we've sourced. But
Right, right. But I do know that President Obama deported 5 million people.
no, I know that's so funny. I saw that
And
same.
even if it's not 5 million, he's deported so many more people than Donald Trump has right now. Now the 4 years ain't over yet. I hope Donald Trump does more and breaks that record. I
But
really
okay,
do.
so okay, a
I mean,
couple.
so don't use the deportation as a, we kind of broad painted that, and we kind of we're using that as something that we went from a Christian value of deportation to just a legal value of deportation.
No, okay,
And
yes, but let me. Okay, so
you said a
let me.
good Christian wouldn't deport. Well, I
That's
don't.
fair. I hear you. You're
Yeah.
right, and I take that back.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Cool.
I hear you. And that was a really really broad stroke. I Yes, I think you can be a faithful Christian and deport people, and I think that's exactly my point.
Right.
I think we didn't know, and I know exactly what you're referring to because I saw it too, and it was I saw the one where President Obama was talking about deportation and why it's allowed, and it was in 2014. Is that the one you're referring to?
Yeah.
Okay, so but here's exactly the point, Dad. We didn't know that that happened because he did it in a way that was humane. They had due process. They were brought into rooms. They were detained, and I do remember the cages, and I do remember that. I do remember all of that. I do.
Yeah. And you know what my answer is going to be, because we talked about this not too long ago, maybe a month ago, is extreme times make extreme measures. And right now, because of what happened in the last 4 years and the type of people that came in, I mean, I think back then, and I've told you this many times, that coming across the border and working hard, and this is crazy for a conservative to say, but there's got to be there should have been some type of
Amnesty.
amnesty. I hate that word, but something that allowed good people who are working to come forth and say, okay, I did come across illegally, but I'm working, and
Let
here's
me help you. You said good people. You're saying everyone. You're saying there are criminals, and then there are people who are not criminals.
exactly,
Okay.
exactly. I mean, I don't want to broad stroke and say every people that come across is a criminal, other
Right.
than the fact that they broke the law coming across illegally. But there's
Okay.
some
Really
people.
quick, because I want to interject there.
Okay.
We do not make it easy for
No,
people.
no,
You
we
have
make
to
it
have a
terrible.
lot of money. The people that I know that are in this country legally paid $15,000 to $20,000 and in legal fees and just in paperwork and all of that alone. Plus, they had to show like $40,000 to $50,000 in bank. So the people that are here, I want the audience, especially hopefully there's a lot of people on your side that are listening. I hope that you understand that the people that are here legally from other countries, whether it be south of our border or north of our border, or from Europe or from any other country, that are here legally, they had money. They came from money, and we let them here legally. The
Right.
people that are here illegally are doing work in our fields and doing work domestically, and they came over because they needed a better life and didn't have the same access to the money that these wealthy people had.
Well, and I understand that. I totally understand that, and I think there's a provision for that. But the ones that he needs to go after now and hard are the ones that were criminals in their country, and they came in, and now they're criminals in our country.
And I don't, and I think anyone that disagrees with that, I would be scared a little bit.
Right.
Because yeah, I
Right.
think so too. But again, so it goes back to the point of how we started this, which is Donald Trump is doing it one way, and Barack Obama and I was going to say Biden, but we all know he didn't. He's the reason we're here,
That's right.
in my opinion. Not he's not the only one, but Barack Obama, Bill Clinton, George Bush Jr. They all deported people, but they did it with, in
Different.
my opinion, well, no, not different, that humane. They were offered an opportunity to sit in front of a judge.
But I think, like I said, Matt, extreme with the type of criminals, with the gangs from Venezuela, Trente, however they say it, with all that stuff that's happening now, I think that extreme times takes extreme measures.
So do you think that Renee Good was acting like extreme? She's
I
the
do. She had no business there. She had no business at all there.
But
Why
just
would
because someone
you?
has no business to be somewhere, all of those people on January 6th had no business being there, and they were led there with a bully horn by our president.
Well, getting back to her, because that whole January 6th is a long discussion. We'll do a whole podcast on that.
Okay.
But getting back to her, I heard a guy reasonably sit and talk, and talked about the three laws she broke right then and there, and number one, she pulled sideways in the street and it was obstructing traffic and the ICE people, and she was waving traffic around. Previously, before that, she followed ICE around all day, but that wasn't really breaking a law. But when she
Do we know this for sure?
yeah,
Because
yeah.
okay.
No, we do. It that's been verified now. She pulled sideways in the street, blocking traffic, and was waving traffic around. That was illegal. She shouldn't have done that.
Okay, okay, okay,
Number
okay.
two,
But
number
Dad,
two, the
Dad,
policeman approached her and said, "Remove, come out of the vehicle," and she didn't come out of the vehicle. That's the second. Once she broke the law and was doing that in the street, he
okay.
has the right to tell her to come out of the vehicle. She
I
didn't.
don't disagree with all of those.
She didn't do that. And number three, she started to pull away. Now, me and you will have to talk about this later. Maybe we should table this because
Okay.
whether she pulled away and was trying to run over the guy, or whether she pulling away
Is
is illegal too. She
But
can't do that.
okay, great. All three things, but none of those things are give an officer the authority to kill instead of detain. And
I disagree because now,
we won't know if any of this is true or not because
right.
all of the investigations tied to looking into this have been blocked.
No, no. Today, and you'll have to you look at this yourself because I just heard it, didn't verify it. So
Okay,
I
let's
don't.
table it. Let's table it, and
Let's
we'll
table it.
circle
Yeah.
back. Okay. Okay. So and that's hard. So let's talk about that because we're almost out of time with our podcast anyway.
Hmm.
Tabling something is not fun. Tabling something when you want to prove your point or when you are really upset about
Right.
how someone you love sees something, even though you know you love them, you don't understand why they see it that way. And it
Right.
sometimes feels very hurtful. But if we don't work through, we will continue to see assassinations in the streets. That's my belief. And it will just get worse and worse. And we will just become more and more programmed to be okay with loving someone and then not loving them and then hurting them.
Well, the first step to that is I would quit calling it assassination in the streets because,
There are assassinations in the streets.
well, I totally disagree with that.
I'm not, we don't know Renee Good. That hasn't been, that hopefully will get due process and hopefully it will get an actual investigation. But there are assassinations in the streets, Dad. I'm not talking just government assassination. I'm saying there are murders in the street.
Yeah, Charlie Kirk, huge assassination, huge, and
Well,
that's a whole podcast on itself too.
yes. And also not investigated. Charlie Kirk.
Yeah,
I'm
it's
sensing,
getting investigated.
I'm sensing a pattern.
Well, we'll see.
Okay. So this is the portion of the podcast where we both had to table something.
And that was hard. But what a growing moment for both of us,
Right? Okay,
right?
so this is the segment where we resolve everything. Of course, we'll world peace.
Where we
World
landed.
world peace. It's you're looking at your notes. Good
If,
job.
if we start singing "Kumbaya," I'm going to shut down the podcast.
Your dogs are going crazy.
Yeah, they can't see the sign recording. They can't read English.
I hope our podcast listening audience is forgiving of little puppies.
Oh, they have to forgive a lot with us, Matt. Oh, not so much you. You're very professional and have done stuff like this. This is hard for me, as you know.
Is it? I think you did such a good job. Were you nervous?
No,
Good.
no, I'm talking to my son about stuff we've been talking about for 47 years.
I'm not nervous. I don't know how some of my people that I love will receive this. And that'll be very insightful, right? I
Yeah,
mean,
of course.
yeah.
I think you should do why this works in 26 and read your points because those are really, really good points, and I'd like you to get them out.
Why this works in 2026. Oh, that's internal. Those are internal notes.
Yeah, but I think you should read them because
I don't even know where that's at.
I've got it. You want me to read it?
Sure.
Okay. Why this works in 2026 for me and you, and maybe a good way to end the podcast.
Okay.
Culture fatigue with shouting matches, and we were just talking about that a little bit.
Yeah.
That's got to change. It has to change in our society. Yeah, a growing
I agree.
hunger for intergenerational wisdom. That's very insightful, and I hope that everybody your age sees that we're not, number one, I need to listen to you because you have lots of wisdom, and I don't want to think that you're not capable of letting some of that wisdom come on to me because you're my son and 20 years younger than me.
Thank you,
So
Dad.
that's really good, and vice versa.
Yeah.
Faith is re-entering the public conversation, but without nuance. Pure faith. We'll see what happens. I hope you're 100% right. It seems to be the case. It
Yeah.
does because let's face it. My belief is our way out of this is God, and that's our only way out of it. And we've talked about that before, and I'm sure we'll talk about it more.
Yeah.
Then you put down Gen Z and millennials are actively seeking frameworks and not dogma.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you speak to that because I'm not sure I can do it justice.
I don't want to say anything derogatory about a generation beneath me because that was done to me, and I remember being young and idealistic. And I think I'm a teaching artist. You know this, Dad. But
Right.
I'm a teaching artist, and I go into schools that are underserviced or Title One, or sometimes I go into the juvenile detention center, and you're working with people who are just so grateful for the opportunity to express and create and all of this, and so I was reminded yesterday that there's so much hope and imagination in Gen Z and even the millennial generation. I'm just out of the millennial. They call us Xennials,
Right.
but I guess technically I'm Gen X, and
You're Gen X.
yeah, and so the younger generation holds hope, and I for our future. Right now, they're bogged down in things that I don't think they can change, but they think they can change. And I'm thinking rather than trying to change them, to put them back to how our framers and our foundation came. But then I understand it, because again, that's such a white point of view. So how do we incorporate and have a conversation that makes it feel that it's not just equality, but actually true equitable exchange in culture and society? And I think it just starts with finding common ground again. And then
Correct.
I think it builds into listening to one another with empathy, or holding space for at least for empathy. And I think that didn't come until my sister died, and my sister was 2 years younger than I was, and she had in and out of the hospital her whole life with autoimmune diseases and all of the things,
Cancer.
cancer, all of the things. And I knew that her life would be shortened. I just didn't think it would happen when it happened. And for me, that woke me up to the idea that we have so little time, and we really have to use it to help one another, not continue to further divide each other.
Amen.
And it starts by just being able to have a conversation and disagree, I think.
I agree.
And I think that our leadership is failing us. So I think if I could say anything to the Gen Z and millennials that might be listening, is work on getting to a place where the two sides, the two extremes can find common ground again and work to hear and find compromise. That word is lost right now. Compromise. We each have to give up a little bit, and then hopefully we'll get somewhere.
Right.
Because I don't think a revolution is practical. I mean, because no one ever has the answer for what comes after you've overthrown the government.
Right. No. Yeah. No. That would not be good for anybody. And I think there is, like I said, and and maybe this should be said too, because we're almost done. But my whole view on the world comes through a biblical basis, and you know that we've talked about that before. So sometimes my answer will be totally based on that, and it doesn't sometimes make sense to you, and you call me on it, and I have to explain myself. But every time I've explained myself, you've came back and said, now I understand why you believe that. You didn't necessarily believe it with me,
Right.
but you understood why I believe that, and I'm going to hold to my conviction no matter what. That conviction will never change.
Well, thank you, Dad. And I understand. I will say this. I've said it to you privately, and I'll say it, for the record. I'm completely beside myself and so grateful and impressed with your growth and your ability. And I hope this doesn't sound condescending. I'm not trying to sound condescending.
No.
Your growth and your ability to even maybe hold space for an idea that I have that you disagree with, and
Right.
and that has it's a complete 180 from the amazing dad you were in my childhood. I don't
Right.
want to say that I had great adventures and all of that, and I don't want to diminish that. But
I was harder. I was a harder man back then, and some of that's age, and some of that's conviction of the Holy Spirit. So
Yeah.
yeah, right.
All right. Well, let's leave our audience there for now. I love you, Dad.
I love you too.
Thank you for doing this podcast with me.
Thank you for allowing me to do it with you. I think it's going to be wonderful, and I hope people listen. And if they don't, you'll have this to give to Kellen and future generations that might listen. Who knows?
That's right. All right. Until next time, thank you all for tuning in to Discussions with Dad.